Hey there, welcome to GSPN's ongoing Bucks free agency coverage, except this time we actually have free agency to talk about. If you're listening on the audio feed, you may not know what I'm talking about, but we are presented by PrizePicks. Just get that in early before I forget. But Jordan Treske and I, who's here with me again, went live. First 2 hours of free agency. We got about 2 total deals, none with the Bucks. Only major one was KCP. We had only Luke Kornet re-signing for the minimum for the first full hour. Honestly, I'm proud of how we did, but so little happened that we decided to not put that on the audio feed. But here we are now with real moves to talk about the next day, also joined by the lovely Rohan Katti. Rohan, Jordan, how's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be talking about Bucks free agency moves. And just it's been a slow going, so now that things are trickling down to the Bucks, who don't have much to spend, but they still managed to get a promising player, I would say.
For sure, and I'm happy to be here. It's still in St. Louis. For people who are watching this on YouTube, you may notice I'm very orange. That is reflective of one, I am not at my usual setup, but also it's reflective of the heat wave that I've been a part of. It has been ridiculous weather here. I've loved it. I've had a great time, but like the weather's crazy. The weather's crazy. It makes me appreciate Lake Michigan so much. Like honestly, yeah. Because I've had days where it's like feels like 110 with 70% humidity, and it's been a lot. I've had a great time here, but Lake Michigan, I miss you.
Thought the orange was a political statement. No, we're here. Well, we can get right into it.
One more thing, Ty.
Okay, never mind. We can't get right into it.
No, we can't, because we don't have to get into everything. You guys have already covered some free agency. If you want to listen to GSPN After Dark, which is part of the GSPN Premium subscription, you can find at gspn.info. If you want to hear about all free agency moves, get a draft of that going, listen to GSPN After Dark. You get ad-free, or commercial-free podcasts, you get all of our written content at gspn.info, exclusive podcast, GSPN After Dark, and other stuff as well. $8 a month if you want to, gspn.info.
Great plug, Rohan. Now, let's get right to the main man, the man of the hour. The right move, Jordan Treske said before we started recording, or something along that nature. Delon Wright, if you'll remember, was a buyout target. Actually, could the Bucks sign buyout players? Was his salary low enough?
I think it was
pre-CBA, right?
Well, this past season I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't remember if he could have been a Bucks player or not. But regardless, maybe he was like a trade option we looked at actually at that point. Was on a really bad Wizards team, probably someone we talked about in that context more. I know we've talked about him somewhat recently. And now the Bucks do get their man. They signed Delon Wright to a 1-year vet minimum contract. There was a little bit of controversy. The Woj and Shams, a side note, keep reporting potential max deals or potential deals as like 10% higher than they rationally could be. So there was a little bit of a like, are the Bucks cutting a bunch of salary and opening up and accept? No, they're not. It's a vet min contract. Thankfully, that was confirmed. I think it was probably, there was no real alternative. But Delon Wright, been around the league for a long time. This past season, if you just look at the per game numbers, it's not going to blow you away. 4.5 points, 2.5 assists, but really was not able to play much, especially in his time with the Wizards. When they were kind of going through a youth movement. They have Jordan Poole, they have Tyus Jones, really kind of a mess of a team in Washington as it usually is. But looking at the last couple of years, looking at the advanced metrics, I think there's a lot to like about this move. But I want to throw to Rohan first because we have not heard from him much lately. And because you said I would have been real excited about this 5 years ago. So Rohan, tell us, why are you a Delon Wright hater? Why do you think it's Delon wrong
Okay. I don't, first off, I like the puns. I will appreciate that. So I'll take that segue. But I will not say that I'm a Delon hater. I will not say this is the Delon wrong move to make. I think that's what you said. I'll say it's the Delon right move to make. If you're able to get some point of attack defense help on a veteran minimum contract, especially when you have guys like Chris Dunn, as we'll talk about a little later, going to Clippers, not signing with the Bucks. Delon Wright, you'll take, right? He's an experienced veteran. He's able to do the things that they need. A backup guard who's probably a first or second off the bench, depending on what else happens in free agency. I don't think you can do like much better than this given the current crop of free agents. Sure, maybe there's a trade possibility, all that. The Bucks probably, maybe, are reshaping their bench in this offseason. We'll see, as it just started. But being able to bring a proven, experienced guy off the bench who fills a position of need for you, like Delon Wright is a guy who I wouldn't necessarily think should start games. He can absolutely close games for you, right? He can be that fifth guy on the floor during like the closing moments of games if he's able to do so, right? So I think it's a versatile move. I think it's a good move. And honestly, again, with the current crop of free agents, I don't know how much better you're really going to be able to do.
Rohan's hitting the big point that I wanted to make. So I will just echo what he's saying in that we're seeing the guys that we thought of as like, mildly like optimistic about these guys that may be squeezed out with the money going out. And obviously with, what we're seeing in free agency, it's not like the guys that deserve the big money contracts are getting those. It's the players that are like, oh, like there's the occasional Jalen Smith contract, 3 years for $27 million that you're like, okay, but it's the Bulls and they have money to spend kind of thing. Where it seems like the Bucks, who have very little spend, they have vet min contracts. It's really hard to entice a player that's like, yeah, I want to get my big payday, outside of promising, hey, you're going to be, at best, maybe in the mix to be a starter going into the year. I think for what they had at their disposal, a guy like Delon Wright checks a lot of boxes. I kind of would compare it a lot to bringing in Patrick Beverley, only that Delon Wright is bigger, he's longer, he's certainly more athletic. I think he just kind of hits all of the similar things that we really liked with Patrick Beverley to, until the end of the season, that we knew that they needed so badly with that team last year. And it's really no different. I think for him, I would say probably the biggest question I would say is durability issues. I mean, he is getting older. It's not like he has a lot of miles under his belt, but I know like a few recent seasons he's been slowed by various injuries, and that might be something to monitor. But for where they're at, like, Gary Harris went off the board for 2 years, $14 million overall. D'Anthony Melton gets, D'Anthony Melton got like a big contract that I thought maybe he could be like a buy low guy. Rohan's big face.
What happened there? Why is D'Anthony Melton getting, what was it, $13 million?
He's getting the tax.
I think it's the full
MLE, right? Yeah.
The non-tax MLE. I think it's desperation.
Are like full. Yeah, they're like, you know what? Clay's gone. You know what we got? D'Anthony Melton. Steph Curry, you happy? No, too bad.
They announced it right away. The Clippers did the same thing. Do you notice that? Like, immediately go like, all right, we'll bring in Derrick Jones Jr. We got a new guy. We're fine. We have a new guy. Oh, we lost Klay Thompson. That's okay. We have D'Anthony Melton. And there's a lot of like, oh, he's a better skill set because he plays defense. He's 6'1", and he was out half the year with like debilitating back issues. Okay, like his defensive impact when he plays is great. I certainly would have taken the shot on vet min, like for the Bucks, sure, but for that big money for 1 year, we'll see how much he can play.
Crazy to me. Sorry,
I thought it was very large.
No, that's okay. I think there's one more target that we kind of thought. I mean, Chris Dunn got picked up by the Clippers, presumably on a vet min deal.
That's what it sounds like.
Considering what they have already spent too. So like these guys are getting gobbled up for various, deals to be signed. I just thought it was good for the Bucks to it's kind of John Horst MO of, you see what's out there initially with free agency, you see the big money being spent. When you have very little to do, you kind of go in the bargain bin and see who's available and see who is obviously willing to come to Milwaukee for what they have. And Delon Wright obviously said yes.
Yeah, I think the big thing I'll wonder is what's the role expectation and what role does he end up playing? My perfect world, there's a player still brought in who clearly slots in and start at the 2, making Delon Wright your first guard off the bench, which I think is great. I think if Delon Wright is starting, like I like the fit of him and Dame. I think they'll play well next to each other. I just think it's a little underwhelming overall, but I think it could be worse. And again, this is I think the caliber of player we've talked about in the past of like throw them into a competition with Andre Jackson Jr., with Marjon Beauchamp, with AJ Green, and see who nets out. Like I don't think the Bucks are in an untenable spot there, but it's an underwhelming spot. I think we'd all like them to continue, whether it's another signing. They have 13 contracts now, unless, a little bit of intrigue here. Would Tyler Smith take a two-way? I think not. I think not at 33. That would be a record for a high pick to take one. That would open up another spot. But they're at 13 spots if he doesn't. And that's assuming, no Thanasis, no returning vets, just actual reported contracts and the 2 draft picks, which, again, the first rounder could not, AJ Johnson could not be a two-way. Tyler Smith could be. Rohan, what's with the...
You mentioned Thanasis and I got upset.
He gets to be around the team either way, which I think is a big win for you.
It is. The
content will still be there.
He's like a grad assistant.
We'll call him a GA. What are we doing here?
Well, he knows a GA.
He does know a GA.
Nice. A KA, an AA. I'm gonna have to go to AA if Rohan keeps talking about the Dasis. I'm gonna throw six players at you. I want you guys to try and guess what they all have in common. The 6 players are Jose Alvarado, Chris Dunn, TJ McConnell, Larry Nance Jr., Dennis Smith Jr., and Delon Wright.
Is it deflections per 36 or something?
You're pretty close. And that's the right idea. Should I just say it? It's kind of obscure.
I think I've seen this.
It's from Eric Name's piece in The Athletic. Yeah. Those are the 6 players to average at least 1 steal per game while playing fewer than 20 minutes per game. Delon Wright's 2.6 steals per 36 is second highest per 36 steal rate in the NBA. He wreaks havoc in passing lanes, off the ball, good on the ball. I think probably someone who's I've underrated as a defender as you kind of dive into what he's been able to do. I thought he was even a better shooter than he was because I watched some of the Miami-Boston games, and he was a bucket off the dribble in that 4-game series. Shot 60% from 3. I think he might have missed a game. But 8 points, 3 rebounds, less than 2 assists, no turnovers in the playoffs. I believe in the regular season as well. He had a pretty ridiculous, what was it? I've got the totals up here. He had 119 assists to 14 turnovers this season. The years before, 194 to 44, 188 to 45. So I think it's honestly, I really like the blend of real, useful, efficient playmaker, can score a bit. His 2-point percentage fell off this year, which I'm a little bit wary of. I want to see how that goes. Maybe better team will help him out there. Good 3-point shooter. It seems like a very disruptive defender. Well. Definitely better spacing. But even if he's not great offensively, that's a lot of what we're in. Just a steady vet, someone you can trust. Like, I immediately like the signing, and the more I've dug in, the more I'm like, yeah, I think he's really going to help Milwaukee with a lot of the things they need this season.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you think about Delon Wright, you think about just like a classy vet who's been around. And again, like he's not even that old. What is he, 32 years old? That's like a 4-year. You're getting younger with getting rid of
he's a fresh 32.
Patrick Beverly.
Turned 32 in
fresh 32. April. Exactly. Happy belated birthday, Delon Wright. But Pat Bev, a guy who's 36, I believe, and getting a guy like Delon Wright who's 32. I mean, you don't think of getting Delon Wright as getting younger, but with this Milwaukee Bucks team, anything is possible, and that happens so, when it comes to age.
Seeing as I am set to turn 30 soon, I will stick up for Pat Bev and say he is still 35 for the next 11 days. So I'm not going to let you take that away from him, Rohan.
Happy early birthday, Pat Bev.
Yeah, there you go. An early birthday, a late birthday.
But yeah, it's a good veteran signing, right? Like Delon Wright's always been a trade target, realistically, for the Bucks. Ty, you mentioned earlier. I know we talked about him as a trade target at the trade deadline for the Bucks. I was a little more sour on it than you were, but I mean, as a vet min, you can't do much worse, right? Especially like I'll keep coming back to this Jordan. You echoed this.
I think you mean better.
Yes, better. I do mean better. You can't do much.
Just want to clarify. I think everyone would have known what you meant, but you just drop you can't do much worse and then move on. And I was like, man, Rohan's really still not high on him.
You can't do much. Excuse me. Then Delon Wright. I almost called him Darrell Wright. That's how
His
frazzled I just got.
His bro.
His champion bro with the Heat, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think so, yeah.
No.
So yeah, I'm all the way on right. No, he didn't win a chip.
Or at least, unless he just didn't know. It doesn't have it on B-Ball Ref. Did he leave the year before?
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, he left the year before LeBron got there.
Oh, that's bad timing.
Yeah, and then he came
No, he
back
won in 06.
Oh, why isn't the thing next to his name? Oh, he didn't play in the playoffs. My bad.
Oh, okay. I was like, it wasn't the Bron one. It was the Shaq one.
Yeah, I was looking at the
Shaq.
playoffs on B-Ball Ref because I had it up, and usually it shows you that gold the ring, but he didn't play in the playoffs, so there's no stats. So still got the ring though. That counts. We count those.
Oh yeah, 100%. Me especially.
Thanasis has stats.
He does. No, I mean that's not even who I was talking about. I was talking
What are you talking about?
Mabedi Diakite.
I thought you were going to say Costas. I don't know if he has stats from his.
I have no idea.
Anyway, Jordan, any other thoughts on Delon Wright? And then we'll talk quickly about the other Bucks signing, and then I think we can bounce around to other players who have gone or whoever else we have our eye on for Milwaukee. I have a new pie in the sky name now that my dear Garris has been taken from me for the second straight time by Orlando. Why do they keep doing this? He's barely going to play. Come on. Let me have this.
Yeah. He feels like a trade candidate if they want to package.
But do they ever trade anyone?
No, I think what was the last big one? The Gordon trade?
Vooch?
Or maybe both, I guess.
But that was off-season, wasn't it? Or was Vooch mid-season?
I felt like there was a deadline.
I think it was mid-season. Yeah, that's pretty wild for them. That's uncharacteristic.
Yeah, that is very uncharacteristic. I'll go back to I would not be shocked if Delon Wright, pending other moves, is probably the lead guy to start in terms of, I think, one, he's the vet. I think Doc kind of leans more towards that. We saw it with Bud. We saw it with AJ Griffin briefly. I think that just feels right, and it's kind of like his spot to lose. I will say, I think part of what intrigues me is, and I mean, it's not like they have any other choice here, but it does open up the door for them to really think that if a guy like AJ Green, Ajax, Marjan Beauchamp, maybe Chris Livingston, if they make that leap, as we've been steadily talking about the last couple of weeks, the door is open for them to at least be in the rotation to start the season, and then we'll see how that transforms over the rest of the year. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. I mean, it's July 1st, so this could easily change when training camp actually starts. But I just kind of feel like that's where we lightly pencil in, but keep the eraser handy nearby, I would say.
Rohan thinks you couldn't do much worse than starting Delon Wright here.
Here's the thing about starting Delon Wright is I think I agree with you, Jordan. I think he's definitely capable, especially with the current coaching staff, especially with the roster. I just don't think it's the best role for him on the Bucks, right? Like ideally, like Ty said earlier, I would agree that you bring someone else in who can firmly start in that 2-guard spot, right? Or I would even maybe lean like Ajax or AJ Green over Delon Wright, purely so you can have a guy who's experienced running the bench unit, right? One thing the Bucks have severely lacked is just a guy who can come in when Dame is not on the court and control an offense, right? I mean, you can have Chris Middleton try and do that sometimes, but again, we've seen him bringing the ball up the court, not necessarily something you really want to do.
Yeah, it's an adventure, we'll say.
It's an adventure every single time, right? So if you have an experienced guy like Delon Wright, who, like Ty mentioned earlier, is a great assist to turnover guy, takes care of the ball. If you have him coming off the bench, I think it's a steadying ship, almost like the almost like the George Hill role, but a little worse.
Yes.
That's the comp. That's the comp I keep thinking of.
Yep. Absolutely.
Is I think he's more Hill than Pat Bev. I mean, I get people get the, from the defensive side for Pat Bev, but I don't think they've had a complete player backup point guard like this since George Hill.
No.
I don't think Pat Bev was that, because I didn't trust his offense a lot of the time.
No, I didn't either. I mean, it helped when he hit shots, but George Hill, like, pre-COVID, pre-lockdown, he was a very huge help, especially as they moved on from Brogdon and they went on that crazy start to that year. He was good that year. And Yeah.
We got big news to talk about.
Oh, I was going to say, speaking of big, like, especially considering, just to piggyback off that, like, Delon Wright is a bigger guy, like, than Pat Bev or anything. Like, he's 6'5" with like a 6'7" plus wingspan.
Correct.
Like, that'll play. But what's the big news, Todd?
The big news. This is huge. This is pretty fresh breaking. I don't know how many people are aware of this. PrizePicks has been announced as America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. And even bigger news, with the 4th of July hot dog eating contest coming up, PrizePicks will be providing a square for Jeffrey Esper. You heard right. Jeffrey Esper to eat 1 hot dog. This is a contestant in the contest. And if he eats 1 hot dog, you win. I don't know a lot about the hot dog eating contest. I'm going to assume they can all eat 1 hot dog. That's my analysis on Jeffrey Esper at 0.5 hot dogs eaten. You can also, with the finals over, the hoops action doesn't stop. The women's basketball is still heating up. There's been a ton of great games on. And let me say, you want to tune in, you want to get your PrizePicks going before the Olympics break. That's going to be a pause in the action. So make sure you're going to the PrizePicks app now, which is available in more than 30 states, including Wisconsin, the most important, really the only relevant state, in my opinion. But make sure you download the PrizePicks app today and use code BlueWire for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code BlueWire on the PrizePicks app for a first deposit match up to $100. I am looking at, obviously, Jeffrey Esper. I'm all over Jeffrey Esper this week. But I'm also looking at Brianna Stewart. And you know what? Dejanay Carrington rebounds. There's a left field one that I've really enjoyed playing. So make sure to check out PrizePicks today. Use that promo code and enjoy picking more, picking less, because it's that easy at PrizePicks. The other big news, Stanley Umude, pretty huge, signing a 2-way with the Bucks. So this came out from just like the most random, like a faith-based former sports reporter podcast Twitter account. And I was just like, okay, I'm not going to do anything with this yet. It was not Dave Ramsey. Dead is dumb and cash is king, though. You know who Dave Ramsey is?
No.
We don't have to. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
he's like I wouldn't say it's like faith supported financial advice.
Advisor.
Which it's there's some merit in what he says, but I think he goes about it the wrong. It's kind of untenable. I can't do a whole Dave Ramsey thing now. I'll start my financial literacy podcast at a future date on GSPN. GSPN.info to make sure you don't miss my finance takes here. The Warriors announced they're going to retire Clay's jersey. Maybe you should have just paid him. Could have saved having to do this at this time right now. Anyway, Stanley Umude of the Pistons has played 2 seasons there. Has played more with the Motor City. Are they Pistons or Drive now? More in the G League
Cruise.
than he has Motor City Cruise. Thank you.
They used to be the Grand Rapids Drive.
I knew Drive came from somewhere, and all of the teams now are just getting more and more boring, which really, like, when they went from the Red Claws to the Maine Celtics, that was really disappointing to me. Yeah. Tony Snell should be a Red Claw.
Aren't they? Isn't the Suns affiliate just the Valley Suns?
I think so. They used to be the Northern Arizona Suns. Yeah.
No, they didn't. They didn't even have one for a bit, right?
They got rid of it.
They had the.
They traded it to the Pistons.
Suns. They sold it to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which makes no sense. I always wondered, like, did those people have to move? Like, are you buying the support staff?
You'd hope so.
You're not buying the building. They didn't play in Arizona. Like, what does that mean if you buy a team? Did they buy all the rights to the players, I guess? I don't... There's so much to
I guess it's like
Dave Ramsey
like
you gotta ask Dave Ramsey might help us.
If you buy an NBA team, it's not like you inherit everything. Like, you don't have to go into new contracts.
No.
Yeah, but
so I imagine
contracts are 1 year at a time. It's really just rights to players, but it's not that valuable.
I think it's the same team, just new ownership.
Yeah, but if you buy an NBA team, you get the building, and they play in Michigan.
If you own the building,
well, you at least get the lease to the it was from Arizona to Michigan.
That's true. I just
feel like the benefits of buying a G League team are so reduced. If it's way too much.
Subscribe to gspn.info. We can find out after we buy a G League.
Yeah. Let's buy it. Sure. Let's buy the Herd. They could use some help right about now, it seems. So I think the Bucks already own the Herd. Unfortunately, Stan the Man. 2 years. I think Bucks fans are semi-excited about this for what ended up being a 2-way. I hoped it would be a 2-way when the news first broke because, I mean, this is a player Detroit had a team option. They declined for Vet Min, which I think should set the bar relatively low. And as I talked about earlier with Delon Wright, not a lot of roster spots. So if they sign Stan the Man here to a standard deal, you're probably done. That's 14. I don't think they'll do 15 with the second apron going forward, and maybe there's a chance if they don't duck it before the season, they duck it at the deadline. That's a whole other thing we'll be able to track. But regardless, it's a 2-way. I think it's a pretty promising 2-way. He's 25. There's some really good defensive tape that's been circulating out there. There's some videos on YouTube. He's a fresh 25, just like our guy Delon. But good defensive tape. His NBA 3-point percentage is really strong.
Fresh 25 like Delon?
No, it's fresh like Delon. Sorry, that was confusing. Okay. I wish Delon was 25.
I was like, that's the heist of the century right there for the Bucks.
Or if I had it mixed up and they were the same age, but they were both 32, that'd be pretty rough for Stanley Umude. Would be a pretty bad 2-way there. But shot 44% in his NBA career, despite shooting 0% in his rookie year because he only played 2 minutes. But in his G League tenure, 32.7% from 3. I talked to some friends who cover the Pistons. Doesn't sound like he can dribble. So probably a pretty touch-and-go offensive skill set. But I see the defensive upside, and it's clear at this point Horst and company are just like, we're going to find wing defenders somewhere, man. We're turning over every stone. Even this past season, Ryan Rollins, Jalen Galloway, like they're just trying to find guys who can do enough offensively and defend around Dame. So the vision is clear. I think this is a good 2-way, though. I think why not take the swing and see if the shooting is real?
Yeah, why not? If you see an intriguing young prospect who has defensive upside, why not, right? Like, if it doesn't work out, which I hope it does, you can always just recycle the two-way. Why not take a flyer, right? Like, he's coming off of ankle surgery, which is also tough. Who knows when he's going to be cleared?
Hairline fracture, ended his season in late March.
So that's also tough. But again, the Bucks aren't going to make the signing without knowing what's going on there. So just being able to just bring him in, see what you got there, and then go from there. I mean, why not? That's the beauty of a two-way contract, right? Like, it doesn't count against like the luxury tax or anything. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can sign as many of these guys as you want as long as you're willing to pay them, right? So just bring them in, see what they got. If they can turn into something with the Herd and then maybe eventually with the Bucks, that's awesome. If not, nothing's really going to happen from it. So I think why not swing for the fences on a two-way? On a two-way, to be clear, not with the 23rd overall pick.
Here we go again.
No, I'm going to control myself. Just no one talk about Jalen Green and I'll be fine.
I was going to say, do you know who Stanley Umude knows?
No.
Peripherally.
No.
He knows Kate Cunningham. That's what he does.
Cade to the Bucks.
Cade the bag man.
Yeah, he got a fresh extension. He got the baby max, right? Baby super max.
Yeah, I think they reported it as the Supermax, but I do not think he will be eligible for the Supermax. So it'll probably be smaller than the number they put out there, which is the new trick to put out a big number.
But good for him.
I think Desmond Bain did
just report a big number. Just report a big number.
That's what
the Bucks signed Giannis for $2 billion. Who knows if it's real or not? Just do that. See what happens.
He deserves
Jason Tatum
he might be worth $2 million to this franchise.
Jason Tatum just got the ownership rights to the Boston Celtics from his next contract. Who knows if it's true or not? Well, let's see what happens.
First ever $70 million season 6 years from now. Pretty crazy.
Great. It's great for a role player.
Dave Ramsey has. Did you just say great for a role player? He's just assistant player. Just assistant player.
Listen, I mean, let's not do this now. I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
This future GSPN After Dark content right here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How bad is Jason Tatum, really? That's just going to be the whole episode. No, everyone knows I like the guy. I want to correct.
No, I like him too.
I'm correcting my Stanley Umude stat. That was just Showcase Cup. That he's 32% career G League from three. In the regular season, he is 36%, although it dropped from 38 last year to 33.5 this season. But still, a little bit of a higher number than I had said. They split it in a kind of annoying way on Basketball Reference. So, again, the shooting, I think, is more of a question mark for sure than the NBA percentage will tell you. I think mechanically that's true as well. But some shooting upside, definitely, and good defensive chops. So, excited to see what he can do. So, should we talk about who is left on the board? So, my free agency.
My guy.
Did. Which one?
Dennis Smith Jr.
Do you feel like that's less likely now?
I feel like it's equally likely, and let's talk about why. So we talked a little bit about how Chris Dunn, again, signed with the Clippers off the board. It was less likely, or I think you tweeted about it after the Delon Wright signing. Yeah. I think Delon Wright is flexible enough. Like we've been talking about, he could start at the 2. He could be your backup point guard. He could be your backup 2 guard. He's flexible enough where you can still get another defensive-minded point guard in there. Like, it's not going to be Chris Dunn. Could it be Dennis Smith Jr.? Maybe. I could see those guys playing together.
Yeah, I thought Dunn was even more malleable, so I would have been more open to it. But I do agree with your general premise. But I would be less excited about that now because then I really feel like, okay, the plan is for Delon Wright to maybe be the starting 2 guard, which, again, I'm not thrilled about. But I'd be happy just to add more defensive talent in DSJ. But I think it's a little more, at least a little less likely now.
Yeah, I would say it feels a little less likely. I think Wright kind of just leapfrogs him in terms of just talent and overall malleability is a perfect word. I would still, I mean, if that is one of the, the 2 spots that they have left that they're going to sign a player to, I'd be fine with it. It's just tough because it's like, we all know Malik Beasley's gone. He's overplayed his contract. He had his flaws and everything like that, but still was more than ever than what we thought of at the time. it is going to be really. I feel like AJ Green is prepped to like fill some of the 3-point shooting, like obviously that Beasley brought. I don't know to the level that Beasley brought this year, where he hit like over 230 threes, like total threes. I don't know if you try to make a bet on a guy that you think that you can turn into a decent defender that gives you more of a spacing threat. That's just kind of like, because roster spots are so scarce with this team, you could go to the big market if you want, as much as they have talked about that. Like Horst, I feel like I mentioned it like 56 times, but like John Horst talking about like the change of pace pick is kind of big to me in terms of just like wanting a skill set that they haven't really valued all that much behind Burke and Bobby. And you have just so many wings. I mean, a lot of them are unproven, but you have so many wings that you want them to prove themselves that you just don't want to take time away from them in order for them to get reps. So it's like this kind of catch-22 with the rest of their roster that whatever direction that they go, I mean, it's all for the vet men, so you can't just have like super high expectations of where you're going to get in return.
Oh, I can and I will, Jordan.
Challenge accepted.
To your point about the bigs, I think the two on the board right now that I would be really excited about are Xavier Tillman and Precious Achiuwa.
Achiuwa is easily. It's kind of crazy just how everybody talks about the big market. It's not a league for big men anymore. Blah 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 blah. I feel like this has been the position that has been depleted the most because it is so scarce of like finding really good talent that way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would love if they added him, but I kind of feel like I almost think it's more likely if they were to trade a Bobby or a Brook that they sign either of those guys, because I think they're going to be relatively coveted vet min guys. And as we saw probably with Delon Wright, I think playing time is a big part of the equation. And if you're a center free agent, you look at the Bucks the last like 5 years, every vet min center they brought in to be behind Brook and Bobby, except for the year Brook missed all the games with the back surgery, never played. Right? So if you're Precious Achiuwa and you could go back to the Knicks on vet min and maybe start, like their center situation after losing Hartenstein is kind of a mess. Like I'm sure there's other teams with a bigger role. Or I can go to the Bucks and just never play. I almost think you have to do a trade first if they were going to bring in one of those two guys. But I would love if they did. It would be nice to have real depth. As right now, the third big or the third non-Giannis big is Tyler Smith. Right? I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's Tyler Smith's time, baby.
Showtime Ty.
I think it's a good pick.
You do, or are you being sarcastic?
No, I think it's a good pick.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do too.
Cool. I just realized I never actually said that.
Yeah, it's true. I'm glad you like that one. I figured you would feel that way, but I know there were a lot of people who's like, you got to go win now at 33 because you didn't at 23. It's like, are you sure any of the players who are win now are going to win ever?
It's good value at 33.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Here's my unrealistic. And Haywood Highsmith is still available.
I was going to say your guy, Haywood Highsmith.
The reporting from his agent is he's also getting a max, so we'll see what happens there. Did you see these quotes, Rohan? I know you've been kind of like traveling. Oh my God. No, I need to pull up exactly what this guy said. It was pretty unhinged. I love Haywood Highsmith. It was pretty unhinged.
I mean, as you're pulling that up, top of our free agent board, my free agent board when we did that, Kelly Oubre off the board. You can look at a guy like Nick Batum. He's off the board. Who else is off the board? I'm pulling up my big board now. Andre Drummond off the board. Gary Harris. Josh Okogie's still out there, I think, unless I missed something.
Yeah, I think he is.
You're right. You're right.
The one guy I want to talk about. I want to hear this quote first, though, if you find it. Otherwise, I can just keep going.
I'm looking. I'm trying to find it.
Okay, so the guy I really am interested in. Oh, you got it?
No. Keep going. I'm close.
Is Lonnie Walker. That's a wild thing to say. It's Lonnie Walker, who I believe is still a free agent, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think he is.
He is. The Darvin connection is there, too.
Plus, yeah, the Darvin connection is there. Plus, if you want a guy who, if you don't want to go as defensive-minded after getting the Delon Wright signing done, if you want to, I mean, he can be a good defender, a versatile defender. But if you want to get like a guy who's more geared to be a versatile scorer, that's a guy you can bring off the bench or maybe even start. Like, I think he'd be able to slot in as a good starter. Great starter.
I think he's a lot of Bucks fans' number one right now. I think for very good reason. I think his defensive chops are undefined. I don't think he's proven it on that end, but I think he has the tools to do a better facsimilation of what Beasley did last year, which is like, I know what's needed from me. Like, I'll lean into this, and I think a younger, bigger, more athletic player. I think bigger, maybe not bigger, but more athletic player like Lonnie Walker, who's a slasher. I think that's an interesting thing to drop into this group with so much spacing. Would be really interesting. I think that'd be a home run. Vetmin. I've got the quote here. Let me pull up this name. Hold on. What's this guy's name? Jerry Dianis. So he said if the money is close, Haywood will stay in Miami. You combine his perseverance to get to the NBA with his toughness, character, and work ethic. He personifies Heat culture. It gets better. It gets better. Haywood will be a perennial all-defensive player going forward, Dianis said. What's really special about him is his versatility. His size, strength, and 7'1" wingspan allow him to guard 1 through 5. Rudy Gobert is the defensive player of the year, but he can't guard Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kyrie Irving, or Paolo Banchero. Haywood does that, and it gives a Hall of Fame coach like Eric Spoelstra a huge advantage. We're not done.
Oh, no.
Haywood is an ascending player, Dianis continued. He's 27 years old and durable. He also guards the other team's best player every night. Combine that with 40% from three-point range, and he is going to be one of the more highly coveted 3-and-D players in free agency. He just wants to win championships. This was all per Anthony Chang and the Miami Herald. This guy was spitting.
Wild.
Listen, I love Haywood Highsmith. I kind of see the vision, but he took it a little far.
That is wild. Seeing he's like going up against it, like if you're Haywood Highsmith's agent, you're like, let's look. Who can I attack here? There's a team that went to the Western Conference Finals. This guy's a multi-time defensive player of the year. He's got nothing on my client. Nothing on my guy, Haywood Highsmith. If you ask most NBA fans, like casual NBA fans, who Haywood Highsmith plays for, like last season, most people wouldn't know. Am I wrong in saying that?
You're not, but
I think you're right.
But I also think most casual NBA fans also hate Rudy Gobert, so it was kind of a smart ploy to get people to be like, maybe he does have a point.
That is true. If you're going to go after one guy, it's easy to go after Rudy Gobert.
He is low-hanging fruit.
Perennial all-defense is it's safe.
Yeah, I think you got to do it once before you can start saying that. But
I mean, yeah, it's like Jaylen Brown talking about how he's going to win like 5 rings before he's 25 or whatever.
That doesn't count. Taylor Rooks was not interviewing this guy. It's not the same.
I was about to come onto this podcast and be like, Delon Wright might sniff all defense team. Haywood Highsmith's agent. I don't even know.
Haywood Highsmith's agent's like, he might get all 5 spots on all defense.
Screw Delon Wright. Yeah, I was gonna say
they might call it the all Haywood team. They
go Haywood High S Smith for all 5. That's all 5 positions.
S Smith is incredible.
Speaking of look myths, up a middle initial already.
No. Speaking of myths. My new number 1. This is not realistic. I don't want people to get their hopes up, even though I have, because I'm a sucker. Magic have added a lot of players. Markelle Fultz. Just sitting there. He's definitely not re-signing, I don't think. Made a lot of money on this last deal. I don't think he's going to be able to recoup that money. So if the Magic are out, there goes bird rights. So then you're immediately down to cap space exceptions, or then Vetmin is the last tier. He's a hard player to fit in. A non-shooting defensive point guard. And I kind of, if I just look at squint my eyes a little bit, make my vision blurry, could that be some version of what Derek White is? The shooting is not there. So you're always a peg down. But it's the same concept. It's the same concept.
I love
Take the defensive-minded point guard and put him off the ball.
I love me some Markelle Fultz, and I agree.
It's a huge issue.
The shooting is an issue, and I agree with you, Ty. I think he should be high on the Bucks board, and I do think it's unrealistic to be able to get him. I think he'd be slot in really well next to Delon Wright off the bench if that's what it ends up being. And I think it's a great fit. But we don't have to say it, Derek White.
I mean, I think if you get
Derek White was almost an all-star.
Markelle Fultz was 13th in Most Improved Player Award voting in 2019-20.
Same thing, actually. You know what? I'm wrong.
It's pretty equal. I said some facsimile of, not that he would be Derek White, just the idea of like that playmaker and making his role so little that I think he could thrive in it. But the spacing issues
I absolutely see the vision, and I don't even know if the spacing issues might be a little bit, but if he's coming off the bench and you have like a lot of floor spacing on the floor, like off the bench or in the starting lineup, we've talked about before, Ty, how the Bucks don't necessarily need to prioritize floor spacing when they have guys like Dame and Chris on the court because they just have so much gravity in and of themselves that spacing isn't really an issue when they're on the court. But even if you have a bench unit with like AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr., if that shot tends to keep what it was his rookie season, that's pretty formidable. And what if like Tyler Smith gets some minutes? Bobby Portis starts taking some threes if he's on the team. I'm not even going to mention Pat. He's not going to be there. I hope. We can hope. But a guy like Markelle Fultz could tear up some bench. He could tear up some bench units. Absolutely. I don't even know how much of a concern the spacing is going to be because of the playmaking skills and the defense. The defense is what really intrigues me. Like that combination of defense and playmaking, like a switchable, versatile defender plus a playmaker. Absolutely, the Bucks should have him super high on the board.
I think he starts if he's here.
He might. I think he could. Absolutely.
Tell him to go take on assignments and then like clean up the garbage offensively, so to speak. Like drive into wide open space. That's all we want you doing offensively.
The thing for him is like, can you kind of make him like a Bruce Brown type guy?
That's the ambition.
He's this really good ball mover, obviously versatile defensive piece. You kind of forget, like, I know he obviously went through hell to be in Philly, but he's such a big guard. Like, now compared to, the top three of Lonzo gets selected after him, that has not aged poorly based on his own, struggles and health issues. Jason Tatum, being the richest NBA player by one contract in NBA history doesn't look good. But like in terms of where they were at that point in time, it's like you have a guy that can hit, that could do everything, has really good size. He plays bigger than, or he is bigger than a guard, like guard size. There was a reason why Markelle Fultz was like this blue chip prospect. It felt like once in a generation type of guy that outside of shooting, and he's not going to be an all-star. He's not going to be anything like that, but like he's still going to be in the league for a very long time, and he's still super young. You never know what kind of change of scenery or just be in a new environment kind of might unlock in him, especially when the magic of like rehabilitate his career severely.
Yeah, I think what we've learned is you don't want him as your starting like on-ball player to like carry that load because I think the lack of shooting just makes it too tough. But exactly to your point, like, can you make him a Bruce Brown? Can you make him an Aaron Gordon? Like, can you will you screen for Dame and roll? Like, will you screen off ball? Will you cut to the basket and then defensively raise hell, spray passes all over the place? He's about 6'4", 6'5", and like a big 6'4", 6'5". Like you're not moving him. He's he's wide.
Yeah.
He's a road grader for guard size. He is a big guard. He's still athletic.
He's a what?
Road grader. It's an old NFL term for like a right tackle who just like move guys out of the way.
Gotcha.
That's my vision for Fultz. Just like setting a bruising screen to spring Dame, rolling to the rim. Like I love the idea. Especially
can you imagine
like
him as a
lineup.
short roll? Yeah, like a short roll playmaker. Like that's unfair.
That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want the Bucks to do. He is 26 years old, barely. Just turned 26 in very late May, so he's been 26 for a month. Bunch of career ahead of him, and I could see him getting to a point where it's like, okay, this is unusual. It's going to be a different role for me, but I don't have any great offers. I can go start on the Milwaukee Bucks and make that starting five pretty ridiculously talented given what he can do besides shooting. And then probably, again, rehab the value, go get a big contract most likely. It's unfortunate. It's hard to keep players this way, but it's worth it if you can get a year of Markelle Fultz for Vetman. I don't know if that's at all reasonable, but I've heard zero buzz about Fultz. So that's my pitch.
You don't need to pitch me on it.
I want to be excited.
You want to hear excitement? We got some news.
Oh?
Chris Dunn is going to the Clippers via sign and trade with Utah. Ooh.
Oh.
According to Jake Fisher.
So I guess he's not
after a draft. Who knows?
That's weird.
Well, if he wants more than vet min, and that's really all they can do then. But that means that he gets at least a 3-year contract. Although I think they can be non-guaranteed years.
They can.
Yeah,
that does get a little funky.
But
what would the Clippers send? Just like probably a pick or two.
They have to send. Maybe they wouldn't have to send salary back. Oh no, they probably have to salary match.
They have to send something back. I think.
That is true. Yeah, because they're in the April.
They'll be above cap. I wonder if they'll try to make this the Russ trade because he wants to go to Denver.
Oh, and then Utah buys him out.
No, well, or just a three-way.
They expand it. Yeah.
Maybe.
Like
Denver sends whatever to Utah.
Clay going to Dallas.
What? Zeke Naji eat the contract because they want to get rid of Zeke Naji, and that would work for the salary to bring in Russ and cut their team salary. I mean, we'll see if any of this happens, right? But there's my fake 3-way trade where Zeke Naji goes to Utah, Chris Dunn on a sign and trade goes to Clippers, and Russell Westbrook goes to Denver, which is probably like the most boring possible 3-team sign and trade you could build. Rohan and I both shared players out of who hasn't been talked about yet. Who would you be most excited? Who would you speak like Haywood Highsmith's agent about if they signed a vetman with the Bucks?
Oh, I don't even know who I would be excited by. Lonnie Walker probably, I think he would kind of hit that kind of niche for me. Just because I think just having a microwave scorer like him, I know you could reference his playoff game against the Warriors, I think it was, during that series a couple years ago. He's different than Beasley. Like, Beasley is just like a flamethrower, kind of just like catch and shoot guy. But the biggest problem with Beasley is that he just couldn't create his own shot. Like, everything was like system looks, wide open looks, run to the corner, hit looks that way. Like, that is super useful. And the Bucks have really like gotten everything out of that well as they have between him or like Grayson Allen when he was with the team. But a guy like Lonnie Walker, who, you might lose something in terms of just like overall 3-point efficiency, but when it comes time to playoffs, you need smart guys out there on the floor that can play multiple positions, just do a little bit of everything, and you need someone that can create his own shot. And if he's in that equation, like, I wouldn't feel all that like I wouldn't be as like trepidatious about him playing playoff minutes when you need kind of like bench unit guys out there just to like soak up some minutes and get a couple of buckets every now and then.
I totally agree. Let's rapid fire a couple of guys who are still available. Gary Trent Jr. Actually a report that the market was cooling on him, although I think it's cooling
you called
a small exception.
You called
the buzz hasn't been good. I don't really know why. I'm so torn on this because at the one point it's amazing value. I think you just have to do it if you have the opportunity. At the other, didn't we just get out of this same thing with Malik Beasley? Like, isn't this the last player, the kind of player archetype you want to add to the Bucks? I mean, I don't think Gary Trent Jr. is much, if all, like a stouter defender than Bees was. But I think you can't say no, can you?
No, I don't think you can say no.
No, I don't think you can say no.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I'd be like, that's
I
great,
think
but I'm
is he better?
Is
he better than Malik Beasley? I keep almost saying Michael Beasley for some reason.
He is better than Michael Beasley.
Hey, no, he's better than Michael Beasley. That's the question.
You gotta be on the right side of the floor to be better than Michael Beasley because he's on the left side hitting elbow jumpers.
I think Trent's a better overall scorer. Beasley's a better pure shooter.
Yes, I think that's the right way.
He has a more prolific shot profile than Malik Beasley.
Correct.
Yeah.
But they're like the same size. I think he's probably better. I think it's a knockout vet min, but it's not the fit we've all been taught, like the big athletic defender. It's far from that.
It's not that I don't want them to pursue that skill set more, because I do ultimately think that's what they need. But they might have enough with what they have if one young guys pops.
I know, that's why I look at a bunch of these names at the bottom of my list, like the Justin Holidays, Lamar Stevens. I'm just like, do I even want to try this? Even Josh Okogie. I'm kind of interested in Josh Okogie. Do I really want to ever play him over Ajax, though?
I've always liked him. I think he is kind of he's going to be one of those guys that's going to always be around in some kind of championship contending team, like how it was with the Suns. He is just not a shooter. And he might be a winning player in other regards, but I think you kind of, I don't know, him and Dennis Smith are kind of in the same category in my mind.
I think the difference is Smith will at least get downhill and get to the basket, whereas Okogie, I just don't think does anything well offensively.
They were putting him in the dunker spot,
and he still is it's 5 points per game and shooting 50% from the field on just wide open shots. So I wouldn't say no to Josh Okogie, but again, it's very imperfect, and now especially post Delon Wright. I think now I start looking at the rotation spots, and I'm like, where would he play?
I think it makes less sense post Delon, right?
Yeah.
If you want to talk an impact defender, and I like Josh Okogie. I think he'd be a good fit on this team. But as you start to fill out this team, you've already got a pretty potent point of attack defender on your team now. So just bringing in a guy who has just no offensive value is tough.
Mm. Speaking of offensive value, I think sneakily one of the better options, reportedly has not met with the Bucks yet, but has met with 4 other teams. Reggie Bullock, I think still has juice. Looked bad, but he just didn't play in Houston.
He had a pretty good year last year, if I remember correctly. At least he hit the 3.
The per games are all down because he just never played because they had too many guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you look at the numbers, he's been a productive offensive scoring / shooting wing. I thought it was pretty good. I don't want to say 3-and-D because I think that's become now this holy grail term, but a guy who held up on both ends for the Mavericks on a couple of those playoff runs, was a very important player on those playoff runs with Luka. I could see him sliding in and kind of jumping into that starting 2-guard role and running with it. And then I think I feel really good about the rotation. I still wish they had more versatile bigs, but let's walk through it real quick now. We can go through a couple more names, but let's just ignore the 2-guard spot for the time being. Dame starts at the 1. Chris, Giannis, Brook. At the time being, we can talk about some Brook rumors too, but 3, 4, 5. Off the bench, let's just say Delon Wright, first guard off the bench. AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr., I think you're penning in for real minutes at this point.
Yeah.
Let's say one of Marjan, I guess Pat Connaughton still here, and Chris Livingston kind of battling for the other couple wing spots. Then, of course, Bobby Portis is your bench big. You're kind of getting full already.
That is
the rub. Not a lot of spots to go. So, some of these vet min guys, I'm just they might just not play if they're not a standout player at this point.
Akin to, why not just bring back the Rooster at that point?
Let's see how he plays for Italy. They're going to have some games this week. Oh yeah, Giannis plays this week, Tuesday and Wednesday.
For the Olympic qualifying tournament. Yep.
Yep. They got to play the Dominican Republic and Egypt, and then if they win, they'll have to go through the knockout round, which Slovenia with Luka Doncic is in, and I would imagine Croatia would be their first round opponent. It's them or. I don't know why when we talked about this last, I was really high on this New Zealand team. I don't know what I was thinking. That does not look like a very good team. So I think it'll be Croatia.
Yeah, probably Croatia, and then if they can get past Luka, we'll see.
Yeah, that you got to probably assume you have to beat Luka and Slovenia to qualify for the Olympics. Like, it's pretty intense to get in at this point.
It's very tough. It's very tough, but it's always good to see Giannis play basketball.
Yeah, he did play, looked good. That's a big update too. Other free agents, Javonte Green.
Your guy.
I like.
I'm intrigued by him.
I think I like him the most because even though he's like 6'4", is like for some reason a power forward, and I'm always down to try a new power forward who can help play Giannis at the 5 for those like closing lineups. I don't know if you ever want to close with Javonte Green. Let's see how he does, but has had like a really productive in small doses career, and I would like to take the flyer. Probably the last guy I'm really excited about on my whole list here, if I'm being honest.
I think he. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Makes less sense now.
I think. I don't know. I mean, he kind of always has been. He feels more Lonnie Walker, kind of that microwave scorer kind of guy that doesn't like. You're like, oh, Shake Milton had 20 points tonight. Like, what? What is that? That classic, like everybody knows this, but like Bill Simmons being like with Bobby Portis when he came to the Bucks, he's like, yeah, he'll drop 20, and you're like, oh, that's Bobby Portis. Okay. Like just like the random Bill Simmons anecdote. But I like Javonte Green. I think again, uber athletic kind of guy. We talked about it on our live stream yesterday. Didn't really understand why he was out of the NBA for almost the entire year last year. I think he helps with the Chris conundrum of, hey, we're going to hide you as a wing defender, put you off ball kind of thing, and I can take on kind of the, Paul George's, Jason Tatum's, just going into Haywood Highsmith agent voice right now, like that kind of.
Rudy Gobert can't do that. I'll tell you that much. He can't do that.
Do you think Rudy Gobert can defend Stanley Umude in practice? No,
absolutely.
No. Javonte Green can.
I like him too. I think there's probably 5 to 7 names. It depends if we count the unrealistic ones. I mean, I guess one I think Rohan you brought up last time we did this exercise. Is there a Buddy Hield market? Does that not exist?
I don't know.
Are they? I was actually thinking about this. Are him and Trent kind of in the same boat?
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of not a lot of interest. And Beasley.
They might be.
Beasley, yeah. I mean, all 3 of them are just sitting there. I don't know. I don't know where Beasley goes now. Everyone said the Warriors. It seems like a lot of that money's gone.
Shooting guard.
I feel like he goes to. I feel the Wizards quickly come to mind. It's going to be like that kind of level team.
They have a Kispert already, though.
They do. They don't really need them. Unless, I don't know.
Are there too many shooting specialists? Is the market flooded? Is that what you were going to say, Rohan? I think you cut out for a second.
Yeah, I think a lot of the teams that needed shooting guard help already got it, right? Like if you look at Orlando, who got KCP, Dallas, who got Clay. You look at the Clippers, who got someone who I don't want to talk about, but
and Derrick Jones Jr., who's a guard-ish player.
And yes, that's not who I'm talking about.
I know.
Like a lot of these teams already loaded up on their guys, right? They got them. So what do you do if you're a Malik Beasley, if you're Gary Trent, like if you're a Buddy Hield? I mean, the Raptors make sense to keep Gary Trent. I mean, they have at least partial bird rights on him. Philly's got something. I think they have. Do they have full bird with Buddy?
They had to renounce. His rights to get all that cap space.
Oh, they renounced. They renounced.
Yeah, so they're out of the business of. I mean, they could bring him back on like vet min, but the $9 million they can clear if they cut B-ball Paul. But they cannot like go over to like give whatever they want to Lowry, to Hield, etc.
Correct. Absolutely. That's my bad. But a lot of it's a lot of these teams already have what they need, right? Like if you want to go to a contender, if you're Buddy Hield, you're going to have to sign for vet min. I'm sorry, but that's just what it is nowadays. Thank you to the new CBA, there's no middle class in the NBA.
Yep. Which,
Like America.
again, if you're interested in a specialist shooter, that could work out for the Bucks here. I'm kind of surprised Taurean Prince is still floating around out there, but I would have to assume.
Okay,
like,
Darvin.
Taurean Prince can play, man, but like he made $4.5 million for the Lakers last year, so even just on non-Bird, they could give him a nice little contract. So I have to assume he's not really available, but I'd be happy if he was.
There was, I believe, Jake Fisher said some kind of buzz of him maybe going back to LA. I mean, the Lakers have to sign someone.
They have to sign LeBron.
They have to sign LeBron too. They drafted some, but they got to sign him.
They're holding out hope for DeMar, and if they don't get him, then LeBron took a fake pay cut and got lauded for it, which is great.
He's like, he was willing to take a pay cut. He didn't actually take one, but he was going to.
He was willing to take it if they got Jonas Valanciunas, which is going to like make me chuckle to myself for the rest of my life. His list was like Klay Thompson, DeMar DeRozan, KCP, Jonas
James
Valanciunas. Oh yeah, James Harden, who immediately re-signed with the Clippers.
And then Jonas, big V.
What was your most surprising deal, Rohan?
Besides the Clippers doing what they're doing, I mean, probably it might be Jonas to the Wizards because it's like, what? Why? Just why? What's strange. The point? Like, do you need a big man that badly if you want Cooper Flag? Like, I mean, like, what's the plan?
So you don't like it for the Wizards?
I think you didn't need to pay him $30 million.
Oh, I think it's such a bargain.
I was going to say, I think yeah.
3 years, 30 is fine. I mean, I guess, but it's like
for a good starting center.
I think it made less sense from Jonas's perspective. I
definitely agree with that.
And I mean, Andre Drummond getting $10 million for the from the Sixers. Like, what is Andre Drummond moving for you? Wasn't he a Sixer like 2 years ago?
Yeah,
he was.
And then he was like, you know what?
They're saying Daryl Morey can only sign guys he knows, and Paul George. Literally everyone except George. Like I was
literally about to say I saw a tweet that said Daryl Morey only knows like 15 guys. Like it's just what it is. He only can sign guys he already knows, and the guys who he knows hate him. So he just has to overpay.
I can't even hate on him that much for it because that is pretty much how GSPN came together too. But but yeah, I think in free agent terms, we're down to like Cedi Osman now, which like every time I say Cedi Osman, I'm like 5% less excited about the idea, and I wasn't really that excited to begin with. Although I do think if you sign Cedi Osman and Pat Connaughton is still around, I think he'd be so motivated you'd get like one more great year out of Pat Connaughton. He'd be like, who the hell is this guy? He's like the younger version of me. No, I'm going to go crazy this year. So maybe that's the play.
Can?
Yeah.
That's true.
Who does he think who does he think he is?
Who do you think you are? I am.
Exactly. Whatever that guy's reference. Name. I do,
I don't know what his name is. Bowling
P. Weber.
Oh, did you know? Did you have to look it up?
No, I know that off the top of the dome.
That's awesome.
that's so awesome. That's awesome. Okay. I think any other free agents you guys are interested in, or should we real quickly touch on, like, it's barely even rumors, but just like the concept of Bucks trades?
I think we could talk about the concepts of Bucks trades. I mean, the big one is Brook Lopez, right? There's been rumors flying around that the Lakers, the Spurs. Oh, Chris Paul to the Spurs also. Surprise.
Oh, yeah. I loved it. It's surprising, but
it's awesome. It made me feel bad for Chris Paul because he's like, man, he's really not going to win a ring, is he?
I would never feel bad for Chris Paul.
I know, but it's just like, you have to respect the guy who's like, I know I'm not going to. Okay. Fair enough. You're right. You don't have to respect Chris Paul. Like, no one's making you. I don't know why I am.
They're sniffing around Lauri Markkanen, so like maybe they'll quietly actually be very competitive this year. I don't know.
The Chris Paul effect is real. He always improves the team in his first season.
Only the Warriors couldn't make the playoffs with Chris Paul.
I will say it won't take much to improve the Spurs from last season. It's a low bar for him.
True.
But we'll see. I'd be actually surprised if they were worse. I'd be a lot more. I'd be worried if they were worse than last year.
It'd be sickening if they were worse. I mean, the West might be a little better, but they'll be better. Would you, Jordan Treske, putting you on the spot first here, Keldon Johnson for Brook Lopez?
Oh.
Let's just ignore the other stuff, because I think that's the central crux of the trade, right? Like, the Spurs throwing another little contract or some pick. I don't really think that matters. I think you have to, at the end of the day, go, we are better off in the next 2 years, we'll say, with Keldon Johnson than we are with Brook Lopez.
I think if we're talking in terms of strictly playing ability and just like influence on winning, it's Brook. If we're talking about the 2024 25 Milwaukee Bucks, it's Brook. You don't really have another avenue unless it, again, trying to find someone that's equal value in terms of what Brook brings to both ends of the table. It's really tough. It's really tough. I think obviously for the future asset play, you'd be like, well, Keldon Johnson's under contract.
Yeah.
You're already kind of like happy about that. And like, he kind of got lost in the shuffle, and I feel like compared to him and like Devin Vassell, for example, Vassell seems more like the ascending kind of like, you feel like he could outlast him in terms of just be on the Spurs and, building around him. Keldon Johnson's still a decent player. Like, he might be one of those guys that like, he has to find the right fit for him and right like environment, like a more so in a contending team to kind of find that role. But I don't think I think the current situation with the Spurs has not really helped him in terms of just like continuing to grow in that sense.
No, he needs shooters, and that was a team without any shooters. I wouldn't be that excited about it. I think a lot of people would, just for like the sake of it being different. But also I think a lot of people are like, oh, a young athletic forward. He might be a great defender. Most of them aren't. I don't really think Keldon Johnson is like a renowned defensive prodigy kind of player.
He's not a lockdown type player. He's more of like a system fit, which honestly might be good for the Bucks, right? Like that gets back to something you were talking about earlier this offseason, Ty, where maybe they don't need just lockdown wing defenders. They need guys who are able to fit within the context of the Bucks defense, which I think Keldon would.
I think he would, but I would prefer a little bit more. I can't believe this is going to be year 6 for him. He's played 5 full seasons. Like, he scored 22 per game last year on a garbage team. This year was also pretty bad, and he's 15. I think the thing with him is 2 years ago, probably around when he signed this deal he's on now, 39% from 3 and starting, like playing 75 games, and then 33%, 34.6% the next 2 years. So it's like, that makes it a little tough. He's not a great passer. His assist numbers are okay, but not great by any means. He's a decent rebounder. He's kind of like a tweener on size. Like, he plays like a power forward, but he's 6'5". He's 24, which is actually a little older than I thought. I don't know. I wouldn't be very excited about it, to be honest. Especially now that, like, who the hell plays center? We're past the Kel'el Ware thing. Like, if you draft Kel'el Ware, then maybe.
Tyler Smith.
Yeah.
Or Bobby.
What article was that in? Jake Fisher piece was like, Tyler Smith can step in and play center. I was like, Giannis and Dame are out of here, brother. If they're playing Tyler Smith as center.
What are we doing here at this point?
That's brutal.
It worked out for the Mavericks.
They started Gaff though.
They did.
I mean, like, do you then go get like a Nick Richards? Then maybe I'm back on board a little bit, but I do.
Even if you start Nick Richards, you have an issue.
Yeah,
I think you're fine if you start Nick Richards.
I think
Tyler Smith.
That's very true.
To me, Nick Richards has some gaff to him. I don't think he's as good, but I think the Hornets of it all is a conflict. I just want every Hornet. I think they're all better than they look.
I think he's the Greg Monroe of Daniel Gafford's.
I'll take that. Greg Monroe was serviceable. Would you do Keldon Johnson for Brook Lopez, Rohan?
I think you would if you get a pick.
I'm happy that John Horst does not do the Morey thing of just like, we'll take a step back, but we'll get an asset. We'll do something later. Because I do think that gets teams into trouble sometimes, is my thought on that. Unless you're like immediately doing something.
Yeah, I think you would have to be able to use that asset elsewhere. I do think that's a very good point. You don't want to just sit on it because otherwise, what's the point? You have to maximize what you've got in order to build like the most competent roster you can around you. So if you're taking in an asset, I absolutely agree. You need to be able to flip that into something else. But I think Brook is the more valuable player there, to what Jordan was saying. But I think in the context of the Bucks, I think it could make sense, especially if you have another deal lined up and maybe armed with a first, you can go get a better center. Who knows? Maybe you can go get Choo-Choo from the Wizards.
Choo-Choo?
That's what Marcus calls Valanciunas.
Oh. Well, not for at least a couple months you can't.
I know. It would have to be
forgot that. I was like, is there a weird... what is that guy's name? They have a Nikola. They actually haven't re-signed him yet, so they couldn't trade for him either. Vucevic, yeah. Vucevic, not Vucevic. God, we're getting to a weird place here.
Would you go get Vooch? Do you want Vooch?
I don't want Vooch.
No. Yeah, that's fair. Neither do I. I want the version of Vooch that plays Brook.
Even that's fool's gold.
I know, but if it's all the time, it's not fool's gold. That's just gold.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's just gold.
I don't know if this is actually... No, see, I don't think I would do this either. There's like a three-way thing that could work where Brandon Ingram goes to the Kings, Brook Lopez...
Obama to the Clippers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
Good luck with that.
That's
I
fun.
think he sucks. I don't think he can play at all. Which is also what I think about Wiseman, which I've seen a couple people trying to do the Wiseman thing. I won't do it.
Hey, I'm saying ATL, buy out Larry Nance. I know that's all you got for DeJounte plus some picks, but can we...
Buy out Larry Nance. What if the Bucks sign Wes Matthews?
You know what? I wouldn't hate it.
He's just so old.
He's very
I think
old.
it's really funny that all the former Sixers are going to the Clippers, and now
they're just running for Paul George. They're running for Paul George. I saw a tweet that said Nick Batum is constantly on the run for Paul George, and I was laughing so hard.
That is pretty much how it played out. Yeah, I think the other team to look at for a Lopez deal, so that's why I was looking at the Pelicans thing, because they need a center, and they really want to get rid of Brandon Ingram. I don't want Brandon Ingram. And also, the Bucks could not trade Brook Lopez for Brandon Ingram. He makes too much. You could take in Harrison Barnes, but, I'm not taking back Harrison Barnes for Brook Lopez. I like Harrison Barnes. I just think Brook Lopez, personally, is better. Obviously, means so much to the team. I don't want to do that. If you can get Herb Jones for Brook Lopez, I'm very moved. I'm going to assume you can't do that. But if you can, I do think maybe a little bit more likely now if they're selling themselves on DeJounte Murray as a defensive player. Maybe.
Who's their starting center?
Yves Missy.
Is it truly that?
I believe it is. I mean, they lost Valanciunas. I don't know why they didn't just pay him $10 million a year, which is a very reasonable cost. They traded Larry Nance Jr.
I forgot about Nance.
Billy Hernan Gomez is a free agent, or is that from years ago? Cody Zeller.
That's from years ago. I think it's Cody Zeller. I think it might be Cody Zeller.
He's not signed. They'd have to re-sign him. He's the very last player on my big board. He is 40th.
I imagine you re-sign Cody Zeller, right? If you're the Pelicans,
I would jump off a cliff if my starting center went from Yves Missy to Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller is a good option.
Rohan asked that question.
Cody Zeller is a good center option if your first four centers quit basketball mid-season.
Which they kind of did. They're just let's get rid of all the good ones. They're committed. Let's get rid of them. That's really funny.
Well, you kind of have
believe you asked that with a straight face. I would sign Daniel Tice. I would beg. I would plead with Xavier Tillman. Xavier Tillman's changing my whole life. If I'm staring down at Cody Zeller Cody Zeller going up for the tip in the first game of the year, I would cancel my fucking podcast.
It's like Zion. It's like, trust me, guys, we got this. Trust me. Cody's gonna be okay. We're gonna have him as the Thon Maker Memorial start. We're gonna bring in Missy right away, but we gotta have Cody Zeller jump ball. We'll call a timeout right after the jump ball if you need us to. But Cody's got to start.
I don't know why they put themselves in this position.
They really didn't have to.
You couldn't have given Jonas Valanciunas $33 million.
You could have done literally anything else.
Yeah. So maybe I actually think they could get desperate enough to give up Herb Jones potentially, but I want to say I don't find it likely. I'm saying I think it could happen. It could happen. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm not saying it's likely. Pelicans people have really pushed back on me saying this. Listen, man, you think about Cody Zeller starting games more. See what you come away with.
Yeah.
But they also have Brandon Ingram, so maybe they trade him for a center. I don't know. Very weird.
But even like who? Like if you're trading BI, who's like a salary you can get back? But
it's a big salary.
Vucevic.
Oh God. Like, oh God, what are the Bulls doing at that point?
What's a team
Does BI fit well next to Josh Giddey? That's what the Bulls want to know.
What's a team that you think Brandon Ingram would fit well on?
I think most teams.
I think almost no teams. I think he kind of sucks.
He does kind of suck, but he's also like he's. I don't think he's that good, honestly. But I don't think he's going to be a detriment to any team.
I think he's kind of always. Like he doesn't.
I mean, he's been on two teams.
Yeah, but I just think he's been in a lot of different situations. Like, I don't think he really does anything off the ball, and he doesn't really do anything on defense. And like, you have to be really good offensively if you're going to do those things. And he's good offensively, but I don't think he's that good offensively. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, he's got a lot of tools. He's got an insane frame, like all the potential in the world. I just don't think he's really realized it. I'm trying to think of like, is there a move where Ingram goes somewhere, Lopez goes to the Pelicans, and something really exciting comes back to Milwaukee? Do the Rockets want Brandon Ingram? Do they want to consolidate players down into him? They feel like they have too many guys. They want to win sooner.
I mean, we could come back to like I don't know. We could come back to the Dylan Brooks trade.
Yeah, like I'm saying, if Houston's more excited about Brandon Ingram, like you could throw that wrinkle in there.
You could.
They have Şengün. Like they have a center.
Also, Steven Adams.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Steven Adams trade that kept going around for Brook. I was like, God, he hasn't played in a year, and he's just not a fit at all.
No,
not really. No, not at all. But
I'm looking at like big men around the league, and this is a depressing.
Yeah,
depressing. If I'm a Pelicans fan,
I love
Brook Lopez is a commodity, man. I think has more value than a lot of people who are low on him think. And I also think I'd be fine keeping him. I'd rather trade Portis and Connaughton. But that's hard to do with the second apron.
Especially after the way the draft went. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You gotta see if you can package Bobby and Pat.
Yeah, and trade Lopez with no plan, you might end up get ready to learn Cody Zeller, buddy.
I think the pod.
I won't quit the pod, but I'll whine about it on every single episode until they fix that.
I might quit.
I will start every episode with 10 minutes of, are you serious? Guess who sucked this week? Cody Zeller. Shocker. I feel bad. I hope he doesn't somehow
every jump ball because he can't jump. Cody Zeller.
It literally doesn't jump. He's not even that big. We can't talk about Cody Zeller.
Like if you have Giannis and Dame and you're starting Cody Zeller at center,
that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing.
Like might as well just start AJ Green at center. Like I'd rather have AJ Green play the 5 than Cody Zeller.
I would tell people I know who aren't Bucks fans like not to watch. Like when you're like ashamed, I'd be like, don't turn on the Bucks game. I'd want you to see
stop
this. Like,
asking me about the Bucks.
Like you don't want someone to come over to your house if it's like in bad condition. That's how I'd feel about the basketball team. I would prefer you don't see this squad.
It's too messy.
It's not right for human consumption.
It's that meme of the Bugatti in the rundown house, but there's two Bugattis.
Yeah.
There's two Bugattis, there's a Ferrari, and then there's just like a steaming, rusty pile.
But you're in the tar pit, like the Lion King.
In the way, and they can't pull out of the driveway. They're stuck.
You're in where those hyenas were at in the Lion King.
Yeah, waist area.
Yeah, exactly. Or the elephant. I just keep doing Lion King references. I know other movies. I promise.
I believe you. I was a little sad they didn't get Mason Plumlee on the vet min because it would have completed the Plumlee trifecta.
It would have. All three Plumlee brothers would play.
I have to imagine the Bucks would have been the only. Because did Marshall play anywhere else?
Knicks.
No.
I think you're right with Knicks. But I don't think they had the other
Also,
two.
we haven't had Cody Zeller, but we had Tyler Zeller.
Was that
That's true.
Year?
That was COVID.
No, that was the kid got fired, Prunty took over year.
Oh, that was way back then? Wow.
Oh, we were thinking of Luke Cornett.
Yeah, yes. I did see Luke Cornett went COVID year recently, and I was like, that's kind of crazy. Yeah, Marshall only played for the Knicks and the Bucks. Miles played for the Bucks, Suns, Hawks, Pacers, and Hornets. And Mason has played for the most. Actually, no, he's just been around the longest. Nets, Blazers, Nuggets, Hornets, Clippers. And he went back? Is that where he went? Is he a Clipper still?
Suns, right?
Oh, Suns, you're right.
He went to Phoenix.
Phoenix, yeah.
I like that fit for them. So, yeah, now he might have the most teams now. But, yeah, the Bucks could have been the only one. Alas, I'll have to try again next year. Is there anything else to talk about?
I don't think they have to try again next year.
Yeah, actually, they have to try again next year.
His free throw shot is abysmal. I will say. Remember when he would do a jump shot and it's like it looks like a baby bird is like hatching from your arm. Like that is.
Hey, the Bucks have a baby bird, so it's all good.
He shot 70% from the line this last year. Maybe Giannis should try that.
That's depressing. When you're like, hey, this guy shot 70% from the line, Giannis should learn from him.
I think he should try the one-handed one first. I think was that Sohan who does that? I think the one-handed one would actually work for him. For Giannis. His hand's so big. Just literally drop it in.
R.I.P. to the Sohan experiment at point guard for the Spurs and for good reason.
Thank God.
Thank goodness. That was horrible basketball.
Do you know what? Does he play for Team Poland?
Does he actually?
Poland.
I think he plays for Team Poland, yeah.
Good for him.
Indeed. I think now that we're talking about Jeremy Sohan in Poland.
Yeah. I think we can wrap this up.
I think
it's time to wrap.
No other bombs, so I think we're good.
Yeah, unless something happens as soon as we start recording, which it probably will. So we'll wrap this up quick. Say thank you for listening to this episode here on GSPN. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this or watching on YouTube. Make sure you check out gspn.info for all of our links. Eurostep, Win in 6, Cruising for a Bruise and Talk of the Tundra. Everything you can find at gspn.info, as well as our premium subscription, where, like I mentioned up top, $8 a month. You can get commercial-free pods. You can get an exclusive GSPN After Dark pod, all of the written content, plus more. Find that at gspn.info. But make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this or watching this. Leave a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice. Also, shout out to Dan, a listener I met here out in St. Louis, and Pod Random. And we'll talk to you next time.